that up
Oh man, from one of the greatest movies of all time, The
all
Bag.
time. Yeah, stick yourself.
Stick yourself. But yeah, people were saying that Kamala Harris is enjoying the honeymoon. She really is. But she's in Georgia today. And just 2 weeks ago, Georgia wasn't even in play. And now Georgia's back in play. So,
How does that impact Wisconsin
well,
with some of the moves
she's
that have been
actually
made?
winning in Wisconsin. She's up 1 point in
Yeah, but
Wisconsin.
I know that some of the states that weren't in play because of whom the candidates
Right.
or candidates were,
Mm-hmm.
now since candidates have shifted, some of those states now come back into play. Is
Yep.
what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Georgia, Arizona.
Why? What was Georgia a red state?
No, Georgia usually had been red. It flipped blue.
Uh,
That was when Raphael Warnock won and Joe Biden won. I think maybe by 1 point, 2 points in Georgia. North Carolina's in play. Um, I think Donald Trump won North Carolina by 1 point. And so now the map is really expanded. And I don't know how to, I'm still trying to work it out. I guess eventually I will, probably when the election is over. But
after the fact.
after the fact, because no one could tell me a week and 2 days ago that anybody saw this coming. So if you did, I mean, it looked
did.
like Joe Biden had dug his heels in and he wasn't going to leave in spite of what all the data was saying.
I really began to watch and pay more attention to him. And again, the day I saw him when they reported that he had contracted COVID for the third time, and as I watched him go to that plane, I says, I don't know if he's gonna make it. I thought the hell, I'll tell the truth, I thought he was gonna die.
It looked like not as bad as Donald Trump did when Donald Trump was trying to get to the helicopter when he had COVID. Because when he had COVID, that was before, right before the vaccine. And then what is that? I'm trying to think of what they give you to treat COVID. Um, Whatever that thing they gave it to Biden. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, it was not a very good picture. And people say that optics don't matter. They really do.
Oh,
What something looks like. That's why and I won't use that adjective. That's or adverb. People can be fooled, because the presentation is such as, oh man, and then you find out that really below the surface there's something else going on. I think they found that out with JD Vance. Now look, what JD Vance says, it resonated with the base, but what it also did was it began to alienate other people, other voters. The fact that there's so many people that support Donald Trump, and again, I'm trying to come up with what a word is, confounding. Um, and then you had the chance to see him as president, and you could see him actually being president. So you can judge him on his performance as president. And the two significant things that he did was one, change the complexion of the U.S. Supreme Court, and then gave away this $1 trillion tax cut to the rich.
How successful do you think Joe Biden will be, or is it more intent to start the conversation because he may not be able to get it done while yet in office? When we speak to those mandatory 18 years or whatever they're talking about doing with the Supreme Court.
That's going to be tough because I don't know if it takes a constitutional amendment, but it has to get out the House and it has to get out the Senate. It's dead on arrival at the House because the Republicans control the House, and so they don't want to see reform because they're benefiting from the composition of this court. So why would they go
to
in?
the same extent, I mean, the American people will have no say in that, and
oh yeah, that would be the constitutional amendment.
They're speaking to basically how the Supreme Court has been weaponized as we see it today with all of the repeals and turnbacks of, you know, all of the different things that have been out there that they have turned around because of whom the president appointed.
Well, there was the Taney Court back in I think 1848 that issued the Dred Scott decision. I want to say it's Oliver Wendell Holmes who was the Chief Justice when Plessy versus Ferguson was decided. So we've always had reactionary courts. People would argue that the Warren Court is famous for Brown v. Board of Education. Um, Conservatives said that it was a reactionary court, right? So I think it really depends on what side of the decision that you fall on. If it's a benefit to you, it's the greatest court ever. If it's not a benefit to you, it's the worst courts ever. I do know that in right after the New Deal, um, there were some rulings that that the Supreme Court made, and so then that's when FDR decided that he wanted to pack the court. He was going to increase the number of justices, and that didn't happen. So I think people look at it. It was something that I heard someone say yesterday, though. You know, they said that the executive, legislative, and judicial branches are co-equal, and someone pointed out they're not. The powerful group in that is Congress, because Congress creates laws, right? Enacts laws. What the Supreme Court does is it will interpret whether the law is compatible with the Constitution. The executive branch is just that. They're just running the government. So it really is Congress. And because they control the purse strings, it's Congress that decides on what tax rates are. And so they really they're the powerful group. And I think that that's why the other piece of it, everyone was talking about what was happening at the top of the ticket and what could happen. But the Democrats were receiving data that was saying that if Joe Biden had stayed at the top of the ticket, it would have had impact down ballot, right? So now you're talking about like could have impact on the race with Tammy Baldwin and Hubby. It would have in certain competitive congressional districts, because you have someone like Gwen Moore. Gwen Moore's seat is a safe Democratic seat. You have people who run against Gwen, but because of her stature, as an incumbent, it's tough. I saw something this morning though and if the polling is correct, Cori Bush could be in trouble. She's down 3 points to the guy who's challenging her. She was primary, and this young man that she's running against, the polling right now, yeah, here we go. I'll pull up the numbers here. This was just 24 hours ago. Let me see this. And this must be local. It says new poll shows that Wesley Bell pulling ahead of Cori Bush in the final days of the 2024 primary race. And if this polling is correct, he is up by 6 percentage points, which is outside the margin of error, which means that if this continues, she could be defeated. So there you go. But she was primary, so this wasn't even a situation where she was in a district where she would have a strong Republican challenger. She's being taken out by her own party. And the young man that she's running against or running against her is Wesley Bell. He's well financed. And so I guess there's some folks out there who just thought that she is, I think that she's part of the squad, and maybe people are thinking that she's a little too progressive. But yeah, if you're just looking at it right now, he's up by 6 points. And usually the margin of error could be 3 points, 4 points, the most is 5. He's at 6 points. And like I said, if it stays where it is right now, she could really be in trouble. I'm trying to think. There was somebody else who I think AOC is strong. Her strongest challenge was a couple of years ago where someone challenged her in the primary. Um, so it's interesting. Understand that Roy Cooper has withdrawn for consideration as vice president for the vice presidential as a vice president running mate for Kamala Harris, and this is done for political reasons because if he steps aside right now, I think the guy is Mark Robinson, this brother who's the lieutenant governor who is running and challenging him would become governor. So he's staying in place. So if the guy does become governor, he's going to have to win the race. So again, Cory Bush, which is I'm trying to think when their election day is. I know it's interesting because when Michelle was pulling up, when she was pulling up my vote, I went also to check my vote to see if it had been updated. My mom had to vote twice. She voted in the special election, which was held. The general is today. She voted in the primary, but then there's another primary August 13th. So I was trying to make sure that when she completed her ballot and that she mailed it in, that it, when one would get the general election, the regular election would come in after the special election. And at this point, there is no Republican challenger for Dora Drake. And so it's just a matter. All she needs is one vote. And so we'll see what the turnout is. That was confusing for people who live, who were voting in that special election, because then again, we have another primary coming up August 13th. And so there could have been a level of confusion. And the possibility exists that Dora Drake will serve out the remainder of Judge Lena Taylor's term, and then, former state senator Lena Taylor's term, and then, but Lakeisha Myers could win, and then she would do the full 4 years. So that's fascinating. I do know, just based on, again, this is anecdotal, my mom, who's in the district, just the amount of mail that she hadn't been to the mailbox a couple of days, but I'm sure it's filled with mailers. So it's interesting to see, or will be interesting to see how this shakes out. Because again, you start all over again. And Representative Drake would only, at this point, when the primary is held, would only have been senator for about 2 weeks, because the election is today, and depending on what happens today, then I don't know how quickly she's sworn in, and then she would assume the position as 4th senatorial district, the 4th Senate district, senator for the 4th Senate district. All right. Again, you're listening to Community Voice. When we get back, we'll be inside Be Healthy, Be You. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Milwaukee, it's back. It's time to play Let's Make a Deal. Be the 8th caller whenever you hear. For your chance to pick door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. You'll have a chance to win 2 tickets to Black Arts Fest MKE, or a family 4-pack of tickets to the Wisconsin State Fair, 2 tickets to Harbor Park Jazz Rhythm and Blues Festival featuring Jonathan Butler. How about tickets to the Wisconsin Dells Park, an overnight stay at Red Roof Hotel anywhere in the country, or nothing? So stay tuned and listen for your cue to call. Be the 8th caller, and let's play Let's Make a Deal.
Where do grown-ups go in the water park capital of the world? Well, go to a water park. You'll find one nearly everywhere you go. Go relax in a cabana. Go golfing. Going for a nice dinner? Oh, go for the special. Go for the weekend. Heck, why not go for the whole week? Go to a show. Go shopping. Go tour a winery. Wow, we're really on the go. Say, I could go for a beer. Need a day at the spa? Go for it. Wisconsin Dells. It's go time. Plan your grown-up getaway at wisdells.com.
Black Arts Fest MKE returns to the Summerfest grounds on Saturday, August 3rd from noon to 10 p.m. Celebrate African heritage and Black culture with a family-friendly festival featuring an exciting musical lineup. Performers include James Fortune and Fire, Anthony McGahee and Praise Motivated, Jarvis Red, the Black country singer, Christopher's Project, Sam Guyton and Generation Z, R&B Live MKE, Soul of Chicago with Sean Hinton, and America's Got Talent and The Voice semifinalist Joseph Clark and Friends. The festival also offers popular paint and sip sessions, new Black culture panel discussions moderated by Element, the Culture Plug, and backed by popular demand, the Divine Nine Party, celebrating all 9 historically Black fraternities and sororities. Kids 7 and under get in free, making it perfect for the whole family. Join us on August 3rd from noon to 10 p.m. at the Summerfest grounds. Get your tickets today at blackartsfestmke.com.
Have you heard who's the headliner for the Harbor Park Jazz Rhythm and Blues Fest? Saturday, August 17th at the Harbor Park Celebration Place in Kenosha. South African's own and 2-time Grammy-nominated Mr. Jonathan Butler. Butler is a multi-platinum selling and chart-topping musician who brings a radiating and electrifying performance. So Milwaukee, get ready for the show of the summer, Saturday, August 17th at the Harbor Park Celebration in Kenosha. For more information, go to mahonefun.org or call 262-654-2412. That's 262-654-2412. Do it now.
All right, welcome back to Community Voice. And we have I don't know if they're a winner, but we have a contestant. We'll find out if they're a winner. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Are you ready to play Let's Make a Deal?
I am.
I'm not going to call out your name. Hey, Gwen. All right.
Wait, can you cough too?
Oh, no clues on how to win. I'm
put me on blast.
just put you on blast
I want to
like
cough.
that. Put your name out there, and then you lose and be like, oh, man.
No.
What station made you a loser? WNOV. All right.
Keith.
Keys. All right. All right. So, Julia, tell her what she can win.
Good morning, Gwen.
Good morning.
You have the opportunity to win 2 tickets to Black Arts Festival, MKE, this Saturday, August 3rd, 4 tickets to Wisconsin State Fair, 2 tickets to the Harbor Park Jazz Rhythm and Blues Festival, Saturday, August 17th, featuring Jonathan Butler.
Falling in love with Jesus. Yeah.
Okay. Tickets to Wisconsin Dells Park, overstay at Red Roof Hotel.
A what?
Red Roof.
Red Roof.
A what?
Red
An
Roof.
overstay.
A stay, an overnight stay.
I think you get put out with that.
Overstay. You still in the room?
You
But I gotta
overstay.
Overstayed. You're welcome.
I haven't seen a Red Roof Hotel in a while.
Okay.
So, but anywhere in
You
the
can
country,
spend the night.
wait, wherever you can find one, that's where you can go. Stay.
We said any place in the country. Might not be one here.
It might not be one here. It might be somewhere in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, right. Yes.
If
yes.
you're lucky.
Or you can win nothing.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
I know.
My goodness.
I don't want you to feel sad for me, so make me a winner.
Oh, we're not gonna feel sorry for if you lose. You know that this is tough over here. It's not Friday, but no passes given. So give her choices of doors, Brenda.
Door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3.
I will pick door number 2.
Woohoo! You won tickets to the Black Arts Fest MKE for this Saturday.
Okay.
Congratulations. Oh,
Oh, and please hold on the line so that Devo can get your information.
Okay.
You know what's? Oh yeah. Hey, what station made you a winner again?
WNOV.
Because you did win tickets to the Temptations 4 Tops, right?
I did.
Yes, you did.
And I Patty LaBelle and
Oh, you won Patty LaBelle too?
yes, I did.
Now, wait a minute now, Keith. Don't have her talk too much.
I
You
know.
Right.
she
We're gonna have the rules people out here.
Yeah, because you can only win, so let's be cool with that part.
So which Patty
That
LaBelle
was
did you
years
win?
ago.
Was it the first one or the second one? The first one, right?
The first one.
And we had to turn in the tickets
Yes,
to get new ones. Okay.
that's right.
So you were there when she said, wait.
No, I wasn't. No, not that.
Oh, so it was the second one then.
It was the second one.
Right, okay.
Oh, she wasn't there for the bomb threat.
She wasn't there for the
No.
bomb threat. Yeah. Okay.
I was there for the comeback.
All right. What station made you a winner?
WNOV 860 AM
All right, appreciate you.
Hey,
in Milwaukee.
what's our FM dial?
Hey, 106.5.
all
There
right.
you go. You got it.
Uh-huh.
That's all right.
Hold the line. I'm gonna get your information. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So welcome. Why am I welcoming back?
Miss Julia Means.
Oh, that's who I'm welcoming back. I almost forgot what you look like.
It's Julia.
Don't be a slacker.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of mental illness,
I know.
what was that? Was the Bill Murray movie? Oh God!
What about Bob?
What about Bob?
It was the
I'm not a
funniest-
slacker.
It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my
Have
life.
that mental health.
Oh, he had
Right.
no boundaries.
What about Bob?
One of my favorites when he thinks he's sailing, or they got him tied up on the so he thinks he's really doing it. Like, no, they had to tie him up.
Oh my God! It was just his. That's a funny movie. Again, it kind of addresses people who have all these different phobias
Yes.
and how he's working through. What was the name of his fish?
Oh, I can't remember now.
Gil.
Oh, Gil. That's right. That's right. Pretty tough to come up with that one.
Oh, yeah. His name is Gil. So anyway, so welcome back, Julia.
Thank
and
you.
congratulations for your honor.
Thank you.
Well, you're so humble.
Huh?
You're so humble. You just say thank you.
Thank you.
That was a very nice affair.
It was.
And they did have wings.
And wine.
You're going to talk about the wine, but yeah, they did have.
The W's.
What did they have? Pinot Grigio, Merlot, and Chardonnay. Yeah.
I drank water.
You drank? Me too.
Oh.
Did have one glass
It's
of
a
wine.
woman. The woman there made it, right? She was a winemaker.
She made the ones that, it was kind of interesting flavors like the chocolate.
Chocolate.
Oh, I hate.
But
I've tasted
I
chocolate
don't know
wine before. It's disgusting.
because I was asking the pourers, and they were saying, because I said, do you all represent a vineyard? So I don't know if the wine that they were was hers or it was in addition to what they had there in terms of the wine offering. So anyway, so it was, and the drummers. Oh my God.
The African drummers.
The African drummers was. I was talking to someone and I was asking where they were from, where he's from, at Diop, and she said, I think he's Ghanaian. And I was laughing to myself. I said, I don't know if anybody saw the women's Olympic basketball team yesterday. They beat China. I don't think anybody in China was over 6 foot.
I know. That was...
and then the tallest people on China's team was the 2 young women from Nigeria. And I joked that Nigeria is to the world what Mississippi is in America. There's so many Nigerians throughout the world.
Yeah.
And there's so many people from Mississippi. I just always ask the question, is anybody left in Mississippi? There's so many black people throughout the country from Mississippi. But yeah, it's Nigeria, man. Nigeria is one of the biggest countries in Africa in terms of population. But yeah, there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot. But yeah, to watch them out there, oh man, it was just like one of the commentators said that, well, the Japanese team is vertically challenged. they were short. I mean, it was, and you looking like Brittany Griner, who's 6'8", right. Asia Wilson 6'4". I mean, it was even their guards are 6 foot. I think Jewel Lloyd is like 6 foot 6'1". I mean, they're big. So it was interesting. And today, gymnastics. Now, if people don't think that Simone Biles is the GOAT.
Yeah, man. Even on that hurt leg, she was
one leg. And then they said she has some, I don't know if it's the uneven bars. She has some routine that she didn't do in the trials, but she might do in the finals that will be named after her.
What time that coming on?
Like
I think
1, 2.
Yeah.
It's gonna be it's on this afternoon, and then they'll repeat it tonight.
Yeah, they'll replay it tonight, like at 7:00. They usually have what's gone on during the day.
She's beautiful.
Oh man! And then when she did the vault and that triple, no one has ever done the triple, and they were kind of like she kind of because when you come down to your landing, they give you like a little half step. It was so cold that she didn't even lose penalty. I think she ended up like 15.
Yeah, it was
something
really
like
high.
that. It was incredible just to watch her. It's just amazing. And they allowed her husband, because we hate the Bears, allowed her husband to be there, so he's not being fined in training camp right now. He's over with her in Paris.
Yeah.
So we traded him to the Bears.
No, he signed with the Bears. He only had a 1-year contract with.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent. So he's with the Bears. Her comment was, "Well, now I don't have to transfer planes."
Yeah, that was. You ain't seen. You thought you saw cold up in Green Bay.
Right. You going to Chicago?
That's right.
But it's now she's from Ohio though, right? I think that's when they showed her. They showed her parents. which is basically her grandparents. And I read an article about her parents, and her mom struggled with addiction issues. That's how, and they were in foster care. And so the maternal grandmother and grandfather said no. And not only did they take them in, they adopted them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It says this whole thing about family. And tell people, I know that there's this European ideal what family is, but what we find out is, I'm not going to use the word jacked up, but families have always been layered and complicated.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, it was interesting. My brother and I and my sister had breakfast Saturday, and so I'm introducing them to people, and they're looking at us going, "Y'all related?" Just like, it's hard to see. You put us together, it's hard to see the relations. And so everybody has their own thing when it comes to family. But thank God for the people who step up. I think about the men and women who will step in and be, though technically step parents, they are parents.
Yes.
You know, that whole question of what makes a parent, is it nature or nurture? You know, and what so what it is. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, I was reading too that Simone Biles' grandfather, who was, who actually adopted her. So his wife was not her biological grandmother, and how she in the beginning was like, I'm grandma. But as time went on, her feelings became so strong for those kids that in the beginning, she didn't think that was going to happen. She was going to care for them and all of that. But then as the years went on, she fell in love with them. And then they, start calling her mom.
Well, even with Kamala Harris, and they call her Mamala.
Yeah. And his ex-wife loves her.
Yeah. And that's what it really should be about. I know breakups are tough. But when you have kids involved, hopefully.
And that only works when that's not the woman that caused y'all to break up.
Oh. The other woman?
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. That's kind of hard to get over when that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting.
Uh-huh.
We were having this conversation. Someone did yesterday. We were talking about biological, like attraction. It's biological, right? When you're attracted to someone, is what you see, what you hear, what you smell,
and what you feel.
Yeah. Well, the feelings though isn't that precipitated by?
Well, I'm thinking like a chemistry, maybe. I mean, partly, but you meet some people that you have an instant attraction to, not necessarily because they look a certain way or anything like that. And then some people you meet that are beautiful and they smell good, but there is like from a romantic standpoint, everything, they look like they have the package, but for whatever reason you don't have an attraction.
Yeah, because it's the chemistry that's overruling reason.
Yeah.
Some of the people that you're most attracted to, you enter into those relationships and they become very toxic, because even though
some
you
of them
are
certainly
physically
can,
attracted, it doesn't mean that you're emotionally compatible.
Yeah.
And that's a different context of relationship. But no, I mean, somebody was going like, I said, what do you find attractive? Oh, personality. I saw Julia from across the room. What do I know about her personality until I now get over it? She goes, oh, she got a great personality.
Right.
But are you attracted to personality? No, I mean, it is what we
eventually
see.
You might be, but initially it is only what you see.
What do you even think about if you have a best friend or someone who's very close, and the first time y'all met, they're like, we're gonna be friends. Oprah and Gail, they did an interview with them, and they've been dealing with rumors about their relationship for years, right? And to hear people talk about that, but unless you've had a very, very close friend, you don't understand the nature of that relationship. It's David and Jonathan.
Right.
They were best to the point, and that people they got to be gay. No, they're just friends. And I don't know how my friend, my best friends became my best friends, but it's like, I like this dude. I mean, so it's interesting when we talk about that and the impact that it has, but it is the biology first in most instances. Now you have other instances where it isn't, but it's usually biology first, and then we'll get to this higher context of then how to navigate a relationship with another human being, which in and of itself is fraught with, and it's not people you just romantically involved with, it's your siblings, right? It's your mate, it's people you go to church with, all these things in terms of how the reason why we have rules is so we get along better with people. Because sometimes being around people is hard.
Yes, it is.
And then we're kind of into people business, right?
We are.
We had started this conversation last week. Was it last week?
With me and Shakina?
Yeah.
About mental health?
Mental health.
Yes.
We were talking about, was it alcohol last week or the week before last?
Alcohol was last week. We talked a lot about alcohol.
Alcohol.
And how it's poisonous to your body. So that you really want to either abstain or limit the amount of alcohol you take in.
And now that I know it's poison.
What you drinking that poison for?
Now I'm going to change flask. So this is, we're doing a mental health awareness month, mental health care, and how important our mind. My mind. I was watching a movie, and they did the Ghetto Boys' Minds Playing Tricks on Me. And I don't know if you've ever heard the song, but it really talks about his struggles with mental illness. And he goes on to the point how it impacted his life, how it impacted people in his life. He was bipolar, and it's a great song, but it's my mind's playing tricks on me. And he was saying, my mind is telling me this, right? So when we talk about our mental health, should we talk about it first neurologically and some of those things that impact us neurologically in terms of our mental health?
Okay.
She looked at me like,
well, I
what
think
you're
talking more like brain chemistry. Are you?
Isn't that where our mental state is?
Yes,
in the brain?
right. Brain chemistry. But when I'm thinking like neurological brain chemistry, all of that kind of wrapped up in together. Because we certainly have mental health issues related to stress, anxiety, depression.
Well, we'll get to that, but let's start with the biological.
Oh,
the serotonin.
Serotonin, dopamine, your body's not making enough or using it adequately.
Things like oxygen deprivation.
Well, that would give you more. I mean, long-term oxygen would cause brain damage, which could manifest,
that would affect your mental health.
Most definitely.
It's a little different.
But a lot of it is just some of it we still don't understand why people's brain chemistry is different than others. But even nowadays, you can, they've come so far, you can look on MRIs and see certain things that we see that are physically there, that are abnormal, that affects a person's mental health, that we didn't. Before, we used to think, oh, just get over it. You're a little depressed, get over it, you'll be okay. But now we know that that's when there's changes in the brain that are not normal, it may require treatment, which could be medication. They're doing shock therapy again now. It's not they brought back shock therapy, much more balanced than what they used to do. Yes, and humane. But it's been very, very effective with people with certain kinds of mental health disorders.
They were arguing back in the day it was very effective.
Well, yeah, but that was barbaric back in the day, what they used to do. As well as back in the day, they used to do, remove your frontal lobe, which really controls so much of everything that people were just zombies then at that point.
And like what Brenda was saying about they can see in the different chemical makeup in the brain. And that's why they said it can be hereditary. can be
I was going to
passed
ask
on.
that in terms of. I was watching a movie with, and I watch a lot of movies, and I think it was Joan Crawford.
Mhm.
No, it wasn't Joan Crawford. The movie was it The Bad Seed? Trying to remember, but they adopted the little girl.
Oh yeah, that was a bad seed.
Was that The Bad Seed?
She
And
was terrible.
oh, she
Mhm.
was.
Yep. Talk about a bad seed.
She was.
They named it appropriately.
But there was another one where they had adopted this young lady. No, the mother was adopted. She didn't know her background in terms of mental health, and so she was now worried that when she had a child, that there could have been some history of mental illness in the family she didn't know about. The Bad Seed, that little girl, she
Mhm.
was, wow, man. So and the little boy that killed his mom.
Yeah.
That's mental health.
Yeah, just a very
Yeah.
young. Oh, yeah, it's definitely mental health, and he's too young to be, because his brain's not fully developed. So he's too young that they make a real determination on all bipolar, schizophrenia. They wait until they're older. A lot of those diseases, they don't even diagnose until they're 18 clinically, but in the head, the doctors are
What if
knowing
I'm showing
this is probably.
They're saying,
Mhm.
psych people are saying that children are exhibiting behaviors
Very
of
early on.
schizophrenia, because schizophrenia didn't show up until you went to college or in
Right.
your early
or
20s.
maybe we didn't diagnose it?
Well, we didn't until it got real bad.
Right.
The stress of being an adult and all of that may have kicked it up. But legally, they used to not even be able to diagnose these kids.
They do it now.
Now they do. But-
and they're saying that this is something that's very highly unusual, out of the books, but our children are exhibiting more mental health issues now more than ever.
Mhm.
And it's difficult to keep up with it, but they said a lot of it comes from the confusion and the trauma in the households that they live in.
Okay, so now
Oh,
that's
sure.
environmental.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
But as we're talking about people again, they're dealing with things where, used to be back in the day, ain't nothing wrong with that boy. He just set 4 cats on fire. There's
Right.
something wrong
Right.
with Lil Keith. I know y'all
Right.
love Lil
Lil
Keith, and he's so
Mhm.
Lil Keith is struggling back
Yeah.
there.
Because when you do see people that do horrific things like that, that are probably a sociopath or a psychopath, they don't know right from, well, they know right from wrong. They just don't, they don't feel it
Sociopaths
doesn't
don't
mean
care.
anything. Right.
Right.
Don't care.
Right.
No guilt. no-
But, most of them that are diagnosed as adult, you go back and parents, well, yeah, when he was 2 years old, he was doing this, or, he would pull the legs off the spiders and, do things like that. He would torture.
Yeah, I just thought he
insects
was
and animals.
doing
Right.
scientific experiments. I didn't realize, because that was the issue with Jeffrey Dahmer. He was exhibiting certain behaviors in high school, and then he came along where it was illegal probably to diagnose it. So how much of it could have always been there, and we're just more aware of it now?
Well, things especially like being a sociopath,
But society creates sociopaths, right?
not necessarily. No,
You don't? Oh,
no. I mean, sociopath doesn't care about right and wrong.
right.
That is a very clinical. They know even at a young age, they don't care about what's right and wrong. They learn how to adjust and fit into society because they realize very early on that they're not normal. I'm going to get a dog and have a picture of it on my desk because I don't have any family, because I don't care about anybody. But then that'll at least appear that I care about something. I'll share stories about my dog. But they know early on. They can certainly get worse as they get older, but those kinds of things are innate. Those are organic things. Now, could you go through a lot of trauma and just not care? Get to a point where you just don't care about, which is what I think we see a lot of nowadays, because they're just numb and they've experienced so much that they don't allow themselves to feel anything. Now that I think we see in today's society a lot, but some of those real sociopaths and psychopaths, they come here that way. their brain chemistry.
And they're saying that, the high lead levels
Oh, yeah.
also cause a lot of
Or the carcinogens.
mhm. Mhm.
We're inside Be Healthy, Be You. She's back. Miss Julia Means, Miss Brenda Buchanan. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Have you heard?
You, Miss Julia Means, Miss Brenda Buchanan, Ascension, Wisconsin. We're just talking about issues surrounding our mental health. And we were talking about biologically, neurologically, how these things can talk. But then we kind of then got into some of the environmental things that might cause a certain level of mental illness. One other thing in terms of chemistry, obviously you mentioned lead. And we're dealing with a lot of children who have had extreme exposure to lead.
Extreme exposure.
So how does that impact, what does it do to the brain? Obviously lead is considered, would be a poison. in the body, a toxic. So what does it do if we can to cause that or have impact on brain development, right?
Correct.
It starts affecting your reasoning capability.
Okay.
And it also affects your learning. Children with high lead levels tend to have learning disabilities.
Okay. Now, my understanding, again, I'm not trained in pedagogy, but my understanding is there could be a difference between when you say like a learning disability, which through instruction can be corrected. So, for example, if a person's dyslexic, it's how you teach the child. So it's not a question of intellectually where the person is or even cognitively. It's just how that individual learns, right? That could be one way.
And there are several studies out there that have looked at, there's some that have been retrospective where they've had, looked at people who are very violent and have gone back and looked at their medical records over the years, as well as some they've started at an early age and followed and showed that those high lead levels, they tend to, as teenagers, become more aggressive. They have, impulse control issues. They're more violent because of the poor brain development having lead on board all those years. So,
well, when you look at MPS, MPS, about a quarter of his student body is special needs. And that's everything from people probably dealing with physical disability to people who have behavior issues. But they are like, that's a significant portion of the school population. Now, the way it works, it should work anyway, even though they're in danger of losing some of their special ed money, is that now we put more resources in to make the adjustments we need. I was talking to someone who said she was driving a school bus, and Gensler was one of her. And she
excellent school.
Oh, it is. I mean, isn't that like one of the models in the country in terms of how they deal with the disability. What is the term we use now? We call them disabled. Is it different ability or something? We can't call anything anymore. I was watching something and the guy was in a wheelchair, and we can't use terms like crippled.
Yeah, it's something abled. I forgot what it is, but
differently abled. Isn't it?
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So us, and then I think it's important to understand as much as we can. Then, just can I use this? What good mental health looks like? I mean, is that?
Yeah,
is that a thing?
Well, it is. I mean, we see so much of the other, we don't necessarily think about it. And then you have kids modeling behavior too, even if they don't. If they're around other people who behave a certain way, they modeled that behavior, right? Because maybe they think that's normal because the majority of people around them are doing it, or they want to fit in. But the biggest thing is being able to process information, being able to look at information and problem solve, being able to know when to make good decisions, because we know those are, especially when you're a kid growing up, those are all hard things to do because you're pulled in so many different directions. But it's hard to be that way if you don't have other people in your life modeling that or helping you that, with emotional intelligence. Your first reaction is probably not the best. It's being able to process what's going on and then make a better decision. But that's hard. It's hard for all of us, especially as we're growing up. And if we don't have that kind of support or other people modeling us or teaching us, maybe that wasn't the best way to handle things. This may be in practicing how to handle situations. I look at some of these little kids and it breaks my heart. It's like, man, do they even have a chance at a normal, healthy life?
We in Blanket of Love, we teach bonding, because bonding is so important with the infant. Excuse me. But also we want to teach them how to teach their children to self-soothe them, soothe themselves, how to, not fall apart. And so when you see babies screaming, uncontrollably, unconsolably.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Right. And it could be something they're not learning, or it could be a sign that they've got some underlying brain health issues going on too. But we're quick to not, babies. Every baby's got to cry at some point. Again, Julie
That's how
said
they communicate.
they got to
Yeah,
learn
that's
how
how
to
they-
self-soothe. If
but
they're
they-
dry, they're not they're not hungry,
Get you some water.
they're not wet,
He's gonna get you some water.
things like that. Then they that if everything is, all their needs are taken care of and they're still screaming, and physically they're okay, you got to teach them or allow them to self-soothe.
I used to joke. I said, "Boy, who didn't get the diaper off you soon enough?"
It's a certain scream, though. It's
Yes,
a certain,
yeah.
Later on in life, so they didn't get that diaper off quick enough for you. Huh? Kind of struggling through life ever since. But so then there are things like even we look at brain development in the womb.
Mhm.
And some things, we talked about fetal alcohol syndrome,
drugs, alcohol,
drugs, and how those things,
Bad
nicotine,
high stress,
bad nutrition, and then the baby comes. And I don't, I was looking at my goddaughter Kennedy, and part of, and I use this term smart. Part of the smart is early education,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I lost 5 years because I was in the South with my uncle and aunt. They weren't teaching me my alphabets. They weren't colors. I mean, if they did, it was in relationship to, go get the red thing, right? But then I remember being in school and I saw the red and then they put the word under it.
Mhm.
And I'm going, what color is that?
But back then too, we didn't necessarily think kids could learn as much as we know now that they can learn. So, when I went to kindergarten, that's kind of, even though my sister had taught me lots of stuff, that's where you usually learned.
Where you learned that from, little girl,
Right.
my sister.
Yeah.
But that's where you learned a lot of stuff in kindergarten. Now, if you don't know how to, count, and you don't know your ABCs, and you don't know some words, when you get to kindergarten, you're far behind. But back then, kindergarten was kind of a transition into school. You didn't have to know anything, right? And so, but now we know these kids are grasping things. I have one of my blanket girls, her daughter is just turning 6 months. She's been grown for 3-4 months already. She is just way ahead of the curve. And you've met her before. This little girl is just doing everything and wants to learn. Part of that is, her family pouring into her. But now we know the difference that makes.
Well, I think the other thing I learned, again, not trained in pedagogy, which is teaching children, but one of the things that I figured out was how, for Kennedy, she gets affirmation.
It's
Mhm.
very important.
Right. So when she goes and figures something out, great job on the puzzle. So
Mhm.
now in her mind, if I want to get positive affirmation,
Right.
then
Look at the attention I'm
look at the
getting.
attention that I'm getting, right? As opposed to Keith over here, who's also getting attention, but not in a positive kind of way,
Mhm.
right?
And unfortunately, that's what we see a lot of, even with our blanket girls. They've learned how to tell their kids, "You're bad, you ain't no good, stop doing that," popping them, on the hand. And and so these kids growing up, that's how they get attention. They act out, they don't get positive attention. And so that's all they know. And so, they go for it. Yesterday at Blanket, our whole session was dedicated to 50 ways you can stimulate your child's brain, infant brain. And, a lot of it is easy stuff. We used to gaga goo goo with babies. Now we know we should say words.
Baby talk.
And don't ask yes or no. We want them to say words, but make eye contact, do certain things with your babies that before we just thought those little babies they didn't have any opportunity to learn. They're just growing up until we can teach them.
Let them play.
But shoot, give them a phone and see if they can't find YouTube or a cartoon way better than I can.
I didn't know. We take our older guy kids to school back in the day, and my godson Frankie wanted to do something, and I told him no. we got to get ready. I got to get you out and get ready to go to school. Yeah, no. So then he walks up to me and hands me the phone. And I'm going, okay, who's on the phone? He go, Godmommy.
He done called on you.
You know her number? You know her number. I mean, he called her on the phone. And then I'm thinking, oh, they're a little bit smarter.
Uh-huh.
And there's a difference between a smart kid and an educated kid. I mean, you could be both.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying in terms of delay. That's one of the criticisms of Head Start. You don't have certified teachers, right? And then the people that you hire, their educational level might be barely high school, if that.
Because they don't pay them enough.
Right. Well, it costs to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a real difference when you put your kid in a daycare center or you put your kid in an early education center,
Mhm.
because at the daycare center or the education center that Kennedy was in, certified teachers, and so she's talking about things at 3 and 4, be able to spell your name at 4. I don't know how old you were when you could spell your name. I'm thinking, what was that, 10th grade? But I mean,
Right.
think about that. And a lot of it's not the kids that we were dumber or smarter. It was just our early exposure.
Mhm.
And then part of that whole mental thing, then how you develop your brain and how your brain is developing, and then the positive kind of stimulus that you put into the brain. Because you're right, there is this idea, what was it, from the 5 Heartbeats, Eddie King Jr.'s daddy, he ain't gonna be, because I wasn't.
Yeah.
And that was real. I mean,
It was real.
I mean,
I've heard it so many times from people or seen people. We're always telling, don't tell your child he ain't no good, because they grow up believing that. They hear it over and over again.
well, here's what's real interesting. We were this came up in Sunday school. I'm talking about Sunday school, but it was interesting because one of the gentlemen got up and read this whole thing about the original fall of man, and that people, the premise here is that people are born evil.
Mm-hmm.
That is not science,
And that is not what the
people
Bible
are born
says either.
Well, whether the Bible could be wrong on this one, but I think you're right, because people took the 51st Psalms, was born and shaped in iniquity.
Mhm.
Well, what he was talking about was that relationship he was having that he shouldn't have.
Right.
But so then you get into this whole idea of inherent evil. Why am I bringing this up? Is because then there are people who are believing kids are born bad. He must be bad. He is not bad. He or she is a blank slate.
Right.
And we're feeding everything into that child. And as you say, then the whole reasoning, learning right and wrong, right? How to analyze things. But kids are not born evil, not born good either. They're born. They're just here.
And then there's so much lack of knowledge from parents, from mothers, of course, which is what we primarily deal with, that certain behaviors that kids do, they think those are bad behaviors. The kids are learning. Like, every time I try to do this, he's scratching my face. That baby don't like me. No, he's not he doesn't have that higher level of thinking. I had someone say to me recently, I'm tired of this baby. He just wants to throw up every time. He wants it. So, like, he's 4 months old. He doesn't have the ability to say, I'm going to stick my finger in my mouth and throw up. He's putting his finger in his mouth because he's either hungry or he wants to suck. They have that strong suck reflex. But there's so many things that they think are behavioral when they're really just
instinct.
Now, you've talked about the so is that because of this whole human thing to that hot?
That's okay.
Don't burn yourself.
Okay.
Did he tell you how hot it was?
Hot.
No. He mentioned a place.
Oh, it's hot as.
Yeah. Or Death Valley right now, which is 120 degrees.
Right.
I seen this retirement home called the Crossroads.
Right.
That made me kind of mad.
Why?
Oh, they named it the Crossroads.
Oh.
Because Eric Hovey says that you only got about 6 months once you get to the nursing home. So why you even vote? You just should just go on and die.
To the Crossroads.
Oh, you go to the Crossroads, you ain't coming home.
Yeah. It's over.
Yeah. but feeding into that and how we then create, because I like to believe that some sociopaths are created by the environment that they're in, right?
Well, certainly nurtured
Yeah.
too. I mean, you look at Jeffrey Dahmer, his father certainly didn't help him by the things that he did with him as a young child.
And then when you look at some of these younger white males, because it's primarily who we're talking about, is where it is sometimes the parents enabled the behavior. The young man up in Michigan, it was the parents who were either, there's nothing wrong with him, wouldn't let them check the bag, because had they checked the bag,
parents are a lot of times parents are in denial. Oh, parents are in denial of.
Yeah, just put it in there.
Oh, it's hard to admit
that something's wrong with your child. Yeah.
Something wrong with your child. My son dog got kicked out of doggy daycare because
it's a behavior problem.
Everybody's traumatized.
You got expelled from doggy school? What? What did he get kicked out of doggy school for?
Not behaving, not being able to
follow rules.
Follow rules.
Get along with the other dogs.
He was in a one of those plush doggy daycare. They weren't gonna have him up there acting a fool.
You don't belong here.
What is your major malfunction?
Right.
We were all disappointed.
Devastated.
I had a friend at work, and she would she'd do foster dogs, right? She fostered. And as much as she loved dogs, she said some of these dogs,
some of them are rough.
rough. Sit them right on back, this dog is. But the fact that we would make that kind of investment in dogs and they go to foster care, and it used to be sent them to the Humane Society, and nobody gets them in 7 days. We cancel it Christmas. They on their way to doggy heaven, right? Now, we have psychologists for dogs.
They do.
We have a special diet. They're doing this whole commercial now, where the person comes in and calls she calls it dog food, and then they kick them out the house. One said, I never liked her anyway, but dogs, but behavior.
Yeah. So that's a good point though, to have to admit that there's something wrong with your child, especially when you see them doing some pretty bad things, like lighting cats on fire and things like that. I think sometimes you personalize it. What did I do wrong? Why is my child like this? And you don't want to tell anybody. But then that just encourages them to get better at it.
Yeah, and I think and
to try bigger things.
And then we put right and wrong, and maybe we shouldn't over moralize. And I think we do in a lot of these instances, we kind of over moralize. But I know you get in trouble if you try to explain the behavior. You're not justifying the behavior. You're making excuses. No, I'm just telling you. There's some causes.
This might be contributing to it.
Right. And as uncomfortable as that may be, that might be. For example, talk about a mental disorder, pedophilia. You're not born a pedophile. Pedophiles are created. You're talking about a sociopath, and that means that someone has done something usually to that person. And I know that what we use over at the Alma Center is that which is not transformed is transferred. Right. So, if you don't deal with the behavior, and the Catholic Church has just come to it is a mental disorder. And I hate, you never want to hear terms like it's incurable, but it is. And again, it had something to do with someone in that development of that child who then did things and then understand the difference in that behavior. So when we talk about that is really a mental health issue. It gets complicated. And like I said, then when you factor things in, Well, once sex becomes part of it, then it just sends it into a totally different, and we're not really getting into some of the causes. I think it is called pedophilia. It's called a autoerotic fetish. Auto means it's coming from you, right? And fetish means it's something that, because we all have fetishes, right? I mean, we all, as human beings, we all have fetishes. It's things we like. That's all a fetish really is. It's things that we like. These people who might have a foot fetish was because they spent time around the ankles, and that's what they're seeing growing up. Or they would talk about people who might have lingerie fetishes because mom hugged them, right?
And it felt good.
And it felt, yeah. I mean, it's all, and that's not evil. I mean, it's just, and how it all goes into our brain development is a good point. Okay, and the brain development and how we work through things. So to be able to have conversations, but I think Brenda's right. What did I do wrong?
Yeah. Mental health, and I always say this, it's a line. You got this line, and you try to stay in the middle of the line. You don't want to tip over one way
I'm about to
or the
lose
other
my
way.
mind. Up in here, up in here.
But what
Y'all
keeps
gonna
you
make me lose my cool.
Up in here. Up in here.
But I like that analogy. You're
Yeah,
right. You
But-
trying
well,
to.
you trying to stay in the middle. But
Mhm.
what helps you stay in the middle is your defense mechanisms.
Okay.
So you utilize your defense mechanisms to help you get over different trauma or different feelings or whatever. And if your natural defense mechanisms that you come up with that you usually learn from experience,
Mhm.
if that and spirituality has a big part of it. If that doesn't keep you balanced and you're tipping over, then you got to seek help.
Mhm.
But how much of that, though, we bury a lot of trauma
Well, we do.
in our
That's a
subconscious?
mechanism. That's a defense
Sure.
mechanism.
All right. So, but
instead
it's,
of deal with it.
but at some point, there's this thing out there called the trigger.
Oh yeah, it's going to come back out.
It's going to come back up.
Right.
So do we go back, face the trauma, try to, as much as we can, reconcile it?
Or understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do, or it's going to continue. Like I said last week, it's going to live in you forever, right? But how you learn how to deal with it is different. So you do have to acknowledge it, and you may need help from a professional to help you
Yeah.
work through that.
Therapy.
But
Therapy.
right, but you do have to acknowledge it and come to terms with it. Doesn't mean that you accept it was right or wrong. It's just that you have to learn. If you don't learn how to deal with that you've repressed, it's just going to keep coming back. Now this is really interesting. I had someone that was having seizures, adult seizures, for a long time, to the point where she had an automobile accident that was really serious. And so she was at the medical college in Freighter, and they were trying really hard, the doctors, to understand these seizures. And they brought in like a neuropsychologist who said, sometimes when you can't find a reason why people are having seizures, there might be some psychological issues. And so he's had a lot of success with this. So this was 5 years ago. He worked with her, uncovered some things that she had really pressed down, some significantly traumatic things, like rape, some, things like that. And since she's been working with him, she has been not one seizure. She's been seizure free. But your body your body is going to do whatever it has to do. And it may come out in a variety of different ways. And for her, it was coming out with seizures.
So in our community, you were saying get therapy.
And take your medicine.
But then that also pushes up again if you come from let's say a religious background where they're saying, pray to God and
take your medicine.
Mm-hmm. And you're not trusting God if you don't. But you know how you feel on the inside. And if you take that medicine and you feel better, I tell people, nobody has to know but you and your doctor. You don't got to tell your friend. You ain't got to tell your mama, your daddy, your husband, your wife. you got to do what's right for you. And if it works for you, because too many people are hiding just so much.
And most pastors are going to tell you to take your medicine. Take your medicine.
Because I don't want you tripping up in my church. I'm gonna push back a little bit. I think that there are some pastors who don't understand it, and I'm gonna use the term. There's a level of ignorance there, and I don't mean ignorance in terms of the pejorative sense of what it is to be ignorant, but just not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you know is what you've been taught, even though evidence might be pointing to, we prayed and prayed and prayed for Keith. He need to be on some medicine.
Right.
I mean, and I think that, and maybe this is the programming that has happened to descendants of enslaved Africans, where, if you're doing things like seeking out a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, that, as you just said, you're not trusting God.
But
and so then the situation just gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
But there are spiritual counselors.
Yes.
That can work with faiths that might not trust counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Because counseling can be pretty liberal, but
whether it's liberal or conservative, is it effective?
It
right.
Can be.
That's what it comes down to. I'm sorry.
But to be able to help with the religious piece is to get a spiritual counselor that specializes.
Is there a difference between spiritual and religious?
Well, there could be. I think what I first think about is like Native American, spirituality, where they bring their spirituality in. It's not an organized religion, because religion is, an organized male, or I shouldn't say male, but human construct, with rules and regulations
primarily
that
constructed
really
by males.
have nothing to, that are there to support you, but that's not what your spirituality is. So I think you could have, certain ones that really focus. Spirituality is about who you are, where you fit in society, where you belong, what's your purpose here, that kind of thing, which may not necessarily be religious.
Yeah, I think, well, there's vested interest in people saying, well, it's, you need to be religious and understand all of that. But we even having issues around how one's sexual orientation or sexual identity impacts one's mental health, only because of how society reacts to you. And if you feel like you are not just different, because every human being is different, right? We're the same and yet we're different. But when this difference is considered negative, immoral, what you would probably do is internalize a lot of this, and then it manifests itself then in certain behaviors alcohol abuse, drug abuse,
coping mechanisms.
Because you and if people don't think it's important to be accepted, come on,
our whole lives are. I mean, we're social beings. Many years ago, I was an adult though. I mean, I was probably in my early 30s. I was at a church revival in Michigan with my dad, and one of the pastors came out, and you know how you get a feel for people. I just didn't have a good feel about him from the beginning, just watching him and his interactions.
Wow.
No, seriously. And I didn't. He just came off extremely arrogant, and I was like, wow, okay. But anyway, so then when he got, that's not you, Keith. I'm not talking about Keith. So
she's fine. I'm not talking about him.
I'm not talking about him. But then when he got up and he started preaching, he pointed out, and I'm one of them. He goes, look at all these little biracial kids in the audience. And I was an adult at that point. And he says, you're an abomination to God. God did not intend for Black people and white people to mate. He equated them to mules and that. And he said, you're an abomination to God. my dad had to hold me down. I'm like, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go. Because it hurt me, and I'm an adult. Okay. And when you're back then as a biracial person, you dealt with a lot of stuff because I didn't know anybody else biracial but myself, But then to see all these little kids out there, and he's talking about every time you go run and get a white woman, then you have these little kids that are abomination to God. I felt so bad for all those little kids. They're hearing this from somebody who's supposed to be telling them that they are God's creation and loved no matter what they look like. And he's telling them that they're an abomination to God.
It was interesting. There was a guy that I had, I went to school with. We went to school together one year. I knew him kind of since we were in middle school, but went to high school our senior year together. And he was biracial, and he was adopted. And I never understood this piece. And he had really internalized, because when you see the dude, good looking, always just family dressed. I mean, this dude was, you talk to him, smart, the whole thing. But he was dealing with some internal issues. And it surrounded the rejection that he felt. Even though the people who ended up adopting him and raising him, he wanted for nothing. But it was always there. And then, wow, to get a call that he committed suicide.
That's sad. I can understand that. I never felt like I wanted to commit suicide, but I know what that struggle feels like, especially when it's people that you believe should love you, but they have an issue with who you are because of the color of your skin, or because I'm half white or half black. I got it from both sides.
You're listening to Community Voice. Be healthy, be you. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Why not take a lot?
when he dropped it, he was still talking. All right, welcome back to Community Voice. Yeah, he was still talking about Willie Lynch when we was on our way to the airport. He was still talking. Ooh, that's the Honorable Louis Farrakhan Million Man March. First time I'd heard Willie Lynch was at the Million Man March. So, so we can talk. It's interesting. We talked about these things and how they can impact our mental health, but we talked about the biological part of it. But there's all this environmental stuff that's going on that really
the
impacts
world we live in.
Right.
You know, depending on where you live, you know, I mean, Julia's talked about food trauma, access to healthy foods, being penalized, you know, because you don't have good foods, or the air we breathe, you know, the violence that's around us in our homes, out in the streets, the violence we see on TV, all of that affects us.
You use the term defense coping mechanisms. Don't we do a lot of that in terms of, we know we jacked up, but as long as I can manage it and cope,
right?
And I come up with all these little coping mechanisms. That's why people are disappointed when they actually see the true you. You know, you have this public persona. Oh, he's like the greatest guy in the world, and then you get with him privately. You go, you know, I mean, this dude didn't get the diaper off of you, huh? I mean, I met some people. I go, who messed on you when you was young? I mean, but then understand it's all those things, and then listen, it always gets back to enslavement. Thank you. But when we were just having this conversation about complexion and how people, our physical appearances, and how people can send you into a mental tailspin just because of how they react to how you look. You know, something, by the way, you had no control over.
No control. No
control at all. I mean, if I set up, I had no control over who my parents were. I lucked out on one of them, but you know, that's the other thing too, the randomness of life, who your parents are. I mean, that
and they're coming with their own traumas and everything, and so, you know, we all do, and that's the worst thing is, like, with Instagram, Facebook, all these things, you see the best, that you see what people want you to see, right? I mean, so they put out the best of everything, and you think, wow, man, they got such a good life. Look at that. They're so happy. I want a life like that. And then, but that ain't their life. That ain't their, so we judge ourselves and think that that's how we're supposed to be, when in reality, they're just as messed up as we are.
When we first went to Zoom, you know, we have our meetings, and man, Julia got a nice crib. Look at people's houses like,
I know.
Oh man, that's how you live it,
right? I remember, and I don't remember who it was, but there was a politician that did a Zoom who, in the house was jacked up, the kitchen was messed up, everything was messed up, and you're like, wow, because that's not the public persona that we see.
We have the Zoom section of our house. Got a picture in the back. You got total chaos, but in this little area right here, but don't pan out.
Right.
Don't pan out, because you gonna see something. I tell people, I'm straight up. Our house is lived in. Now, there's some people you go in, that house is immaculate, nothing's out of place. And to the point that the kids now are traumatized.
Yeah, those are people usually with OCD.
That's what I'm thinking. There is something there.
Right.
I ain't gonna even do that. Don't bring your mama back in.
Well, now our house was always very clean growing up, but my mother never worked outside the home. So, you know,
my grandmother.
So
but there is some, do you think, and I'm here being my corner psychiatrist, there's some people where they obsess with cleanliness is probably dealing with something internally.
Well, they say your out is a reflection of your internal health. You know, when you see hoarders, obviously they have things going on internally.
Those in my family.
You know,
that is crazy.
That is.
That is. Whoa.
And
I
they
don't know if you know
they
any
don't
hoarders.
They don't believe you.
Have you been by a hoarder's
I
house?
yes,
Oh,
I have somebody in my family that's a
it
hoarder.
triggered some things in me. I was like, I gotta go.
It's hard to, yeah.
I gotta go. But you're right. There's the satisfaction that they get. You know, one of the I'd say a form of crack was back in the day. Remember, late at night you could order stuff. You know, you have all these ads on.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And there were
They
people.
just got
That was
hooked
where the
on it.
home shopping network
Yeah.
really kind of.
Mhm.
And there were people who that was their drug.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, stuff they didn't even need. But
I had a patient like that. You couldn't get in the house because there were so many boxes, and many of them had never been opened. I mean, treadmill, you name it, never been opened. The whole dining area was just filled with things that had never been opened. And you know, the thing is when you're dealing with people who have hoarders, when you remove all of that, they become incredibly stressed, and so you have to be careful about it because they're going to fill it back up real quickly so that they feel
they're going to go through a withdrawal.
Right. So if you're going to do that, like people think they're helping, you'll just go clean out the house for them without that person getting help. You have created chaos in their life by cleaning all of that stuff out. Because they're going to fill it back up as quickly as they can because that's how they feel comfortable.
And I tell people,
have you ever watched the show?
Hoarders?
I have.
Yeah.
No. Because I have it in my
I have it in
my family.
Understanding.
So
Those people really go through emotional. I mean,
They'll fight you.
Bad. Yeah.
I mean, you'll find a box with newspapers in it and stuff from 10 years ago. Don't throw that away. Don't throw that away. And if you do, I mean, it's traumatizing.
Oh, yeah.
And you
might get hurt.
You right? You might.
And you would think there's one of these things at first, because I don't know what the hoarders on the show looks like. They're probably predominantly European.
Mm-hmm.
So black people, black people,
just as bad.
Just as bad. It's an amazing thing, and it's the Jerry Springer syndrome. I feel so much better about my mental illness when I see yours. Because after you watch Jerry Springer, you don't feel better about yourself. Because you meet some of these folks going out here like, okay, I know it's the attention, but y'all got some deep stuff going on here.
And sharing it with the public.
That in my mind is the pathology.
Yeah,
it's bad enough that you're doing it, but then you want to show the world.
Yeah.
I tell people don't celebrate your ignorance.
No.
You know, I mean, this is, but no, that hoarding thing, the first time I encountered it, I was like, snap. This is, so we all have our things. I did a program on phobias, which is again
a defense mechanism.
Right. But our whole mental health. And then there's some people who, back to Bob, right, who had all these phobias to the point that he couldn't function in the world, only to find out that it was psychosomatic, and that it was his brain, and just
causing all of that.
And that's the other thing too, because I know that I'm highly susceptible to suggestion. You know, you hear people psychosomatic. So Brenda has a heart attack. I'm going to
Yeah. I think every nurse that go through nursing school, every disease
Wait a minute, do I have this?
That's why I hate to hear symptoms of anything.
Right, because your mind is going.
I'm going through that.
I'm going through.
I got it
too.
I got it bad.
I got that too.
I got that too.
Everything.
Can you die from it? No, but the brain. And then what is the percentage of our brain we use?
Like 10%, they say, about 10%.
Right. I mean, it is, Julia says it all the time. The creator, and when we look at our creation, and it's just how the brain and the mind works. You know, we were talking about there's a certain level of mental decline as we get older.
Yes.
Now, there are exceptions to the rule, like my Aunt Pig, who's 90 years old, talking like a 50-year-old. And then there's Joe Biden, who, and look, what probably exacerbated that and accelerated that was the enormous amount of pressure he's under as leader of the free world.
Yeah.
You know, and so
and he had a speech impediment to start
already,
with.
right?
So that didn't help. But he seems to be more relaxed now.
Yes, when you hear him interviewing in a relaxed state, he definitely is better. But you know, when we talk about brain and how we use it, when you look at things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, things like that, when you look at their brain scans, some of them use much more of their brain and different parts of it than we do. Some of them are so gifted, you know, and that's part of the reason why they don't like their medication, because it takes away that essence of who they are. You know, they like that creativity and all of that.
And we can't use it anymore, but they would talk about the so-called idiot savant, right? Where you'd have a person who might not be communicative, you know, dealing with autism, but a musical genius.
Yes.
And, you know, you try to explain it. I'm reading Malcolm Gladwell's book on what he calls exceptional people and genius. And there are some people just innately you're born with a certain capacity, and then you develop that capacity, right? It's how does a person fall in love with music? There was something that happened or they were exposed to. Debo, we were at, I went down to the gospel stage, Garfield Day, and I think it's OC and the Exalters. And the drummer was there. His son, who looked to be about 6, was standing right at the drum kit watching everything he was doing. How good of a drummer you think that kid is going to be? I mean, and at first he's like, what's that kid? Well, he was watching them. And so it's the stimulation. We talk about stimulation, those things that will stimulate you. Some people, oh man, I could care less about music. It could be numbers. It's and then we will then do our brain. Our brain is developing, and then we go, this is what I like to do. Let me real quick. I think you was going to explain this to me when you were talking about kids wanting to suck. That's because of the feeding, right?
Yeah, it's they're born with a suck reflex. Even in utero, you'll see them sometimes sucking their thumb.
And
or
because
their
we're
hand.
mammals.
And so that's how we learn to feed. That's how we feed, right? So they're born with a very strong sucking reflex. And so, you know, that's why pacifiers work for some kids and that, because they want to suck all the time. It doesn't mean that, you know, there's something wrong.
Well, I think
with
they
them.
all, no, it also speaks to a certain level of oral fixation, oral satisfaction.
Yes.
That goes
calming. You know, that's why pacifiers, they're calming for some kids.
I knew a friend of mine, she was an adult, and she'd be talking, and she's doing this, and she's rubbing her face. Like, why is she rubbing her face? And then all of us.
She's trying to get that thumb in her mouth.
She's here. And she was grown, and she would be just like, and there was things that parents would do, like put hot sauce on a Band-Aid. The problem was obviously somewhat dust to your teeth, but you know, it's also just
Soothing.
natural.
It was self-soothing. That's how she soothed herself.
So if we've identified that we are having some challenges relative to our mental health, what would be some of the suggestions?
Well, you should seek counseling, just like you have to have start out with a primary care physician, but and then that primary care physician will refer you. But if there's a crisis, you can call the Milwaukee County Crisis Helpline, which is 414-257-7222. And that's 414-257-7222. And then you can text, and that's just 988 for free and confidential emotional support to people who are in a suicidal crisis or emotional distress. And that's 24/7.
I was just sitting.
I was just going to say, and I know that in the last year or two, the amount of calls that they give has got increased significantly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, COVID sent us into a serious mental spiral that we're still dealing with. You know, Brenda, you're about 15 years away from this, but when you go in for your Medicare exam,
15. You're so kind. 15 years. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Keith. That means I was what? Maybe 10
Hey,
when my son was born. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate it.
There you go. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I offended you the other way, right? I'm sorry. But no, you do that Medicare. Have you had that? You know,
What exam?
when you go in for your doctor and they have to ask you these Medicare questions after 65.
Oh, well,
And you
it's
get
so long ago. I didn't remember that.
Oh, I thought you hadn't gotten there yet.
He is just, I don't know what he wants, girl, but he wants something because he's just being real
What are
nice.
some of the questions? I'll remember.
Do you have problems with memory?
Yep.
I do, but it comes eventually.
Yeah, me too.
It's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my mama took the test that Trump brags about.
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling.
I know that's all. It's kind of a hard test. That recall.
Test, that recall. I was struggling over there, so I'll come back and give you the Medicare questions when we get back.
Okay.
You forgot?
We're up for the last break of the program. We'll be right back. To get out. You don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here. All right, real quickly, they ask you, are you depressed?
Mm-hmm.
They ask you, have you had any falls? And then they ask you, do you feel endangered at home?
They ask us those at every appointment now.
Yep. So I was going, I have to whisper because I think my wife is in the waiting room. but I'm a little scared. She can't hear me, can she? Let me thank Miss Julie Reeves, Miss Brenda Buchanan. Be healthy, be you, Carvey, Debo, everybody. Let me thank you, Carvey. So good to have you back. So Harvey don't have to man it. Yeah, that was hard up there. Harvey, hey man, Harvey stepped up. There you go. Special. Oh, man, love that one. Good Lord willing, creek don't rise. Hope to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go from this place in peace.